All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going way back to the early days of the internet.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be good.
Yeah, we're diving into the early research on internet addiction. We found this review article from 2005.
2005,
I
wow.
know, right? It's called A Review of the Research on Internet Addiction. The authors are Chin Chow, Linda Condren, and John C. Belland.
Okay, I've heard of Chow.
Yeah, he did a lot of work in this area. It was published in the Educational Psychology Review. It's basically a time capsule.
Yeah.
you know, Showing us how researchers first started to understand internet addiction, like as a real, behavioral issue.
Yeah, this is before Facebook, before Twitter, Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Before smartphones, even.
I mean, the internet was a totally different world back then. So this is like a fascinating historical perspective.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this deep dive is so interesting for our listeners. We're going back to the basics, to the core of how we relate to technology.
Right.
And we can really see how this whole idea of internet addiction, how it first started to take shape.
Before it became the huge thing it is today.
Exactly. And we're going to break down these early findings in a way that's, clear and easy to understand.
Yeah, no jargon.
None of that, just a good conversation. So the article, it starts by talking about what actually sparked this whole line of research. And it's pretty interesting. They talk about observations from college campuses, like, students choosing to chat online instead of talking to each other, even when they were in the same room.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that. Even back then.
Right. And then there was this idea that some students were prioritizing internet use over, like, sleep and even their studies.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Which, makes sense. The internet was this new, exciting thing, but it was also starting to raise some concerns.
For sure. Like, is this healthy? You know?
Exactly. So the first challenge for researchers was figuring out how to even define internet addiction. It wasn't as simple as it might seem.
No, not at all. I mean, back then the word addiction was mainly used for substance abuse, like drugs and alcohol.
Right. So applying it to a behavior, like using the internet, that was a big debate.
Huge debate. Researchers were looking at other behavioral issues too, like pathological gambling, trying to see if there were similarities.
Okay, so like, are there these same patterns of compulsive behavior? And are there negative consequences in a person's life?
Exactly. They were trying to figure out if excessive internet use fit that same kind of framework.
And I noticed their article used a bunch of different terms. It wasn't like everyone agreed on just one term for this.
Yeah, it was all over the place. You had internet addiction, obviously, but also internet addiction disorder, internet pathological use, internet dependency. Like, they were all trying to grasp this new thing.
Right. It really shows how new this area of research was.
Definitely. Still developing. For our conversation, though, we'll mostly just say internet addiction, as a kind of a catch-all term.
Yeah, makes sense. But even without a perfect definition, everyone seemed to agree that this was a real problem, something they needed to look into.
Oh, for sure. Even the researchers who weren't comfortable using the word addiction, they still saw that some people were having serious issues because of their internet use.
Okay, so like their lives were being negatively affected.
Exactly. And Griffiths, he was one of the first to really try to categorize it. He called it a technological addiction. And he put it under the umbrella of behavioral addictions.
Interesting. So kind of like gambling, but with technology.
Exactly. And then you have Kandel, who had this broader definition. It was more about the psychological dependence on the internet itself, like regardless of what you were actually doing online.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not just the specific activities, it's the feeling of needing to be connected.
Right. So like maybe you don't even know what you're going to do online. You just feel this urge to be online, to be connected.
So how did researchers try to measure internet addiction back in 2005? What kind of tools did they have?
Well, the first step was actually coming up with diagnostic criteria. They needed to figure out, like, what does internet addiction actually look like? What are the signs?
Right, they needed some kind of framework.
Exactly. And the article mentions a few early attempts, like Goldberg's criteria and Griffith's 6 criteria.
Okay, and then I guess they had to figure out how to collect data.
Right. And a lot of the early research relied on self-report, like checklists and questionnaires.
That makes sense. Since it's about a person's behavior, did any of those early tools stand out?
Yeah, there was Young's Internet Addiction Diagnostic Questionnaire. It was developed in 1996, often called the DQ.
Okay, the DQ. Was it super complicated?
No, actually pretty simple. 8 yes or no questions. Like, are you preoccupied with the internet? Do you spend more time online than you intended?
Okay, so pretty straightforward questions.
Right. And if someone answered yes to at least 5 of those questions, it suggested they might be a dependent user.
Interesting. Were there other approaches?
Oh yeah. Scherer came up with a checklist of 10 clinical symptoms. But researchers quickly realized they needed something more in-depth, so they developed more complex surveys.
So instead of just yes or no, you could give a more nuanced answer.
Exactly. And they could use statistical analysis on the data.
Hmm.
Like Moorhan, Martin, and Schumacher created this pathological use scale. It had 13 questions and looked at how internet use was affecting different areas of a person's life.
Oh, okay. So like work, relationships, stress levels, mood, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then you have Brenner, who developed the IRABI, the Internet-Related Addictive Behavior Inventory.
What was that one like?
It was longer, 32 true or false statements. It tried to capture a broader range of online behaviors.
Interesting. So it seems like they were trying a lot of different things to figure out how to best measure this.
Oh yeah, total experimentation phase.
Yeah.
You had short checklists, longer questionnaires, some even did interviews and case studies.
And they were looking at different groups of people too.
Right, college students, high school students, even the general public. It was all about trying to understand this new phenomenon.
Okay, so let's get into some of the actual findings. What were some of the early things researchers learned about internet addiction? Let's start with how much time people were actually spending online.
Okay, so that was a big focus. The idea of overuse or excessive use was often linked to the sheer amount of time someone was online.
Right. Makes sense.
Young, in 1998, found a huge difference between internet dependence and non-dependence. The dependents averaged 39 hours a week online.
39 hours a week, that's almost a full-time job.
I know, right? Compared to just 5 hours for the non-dependents. So that's a massive gap.
Wow. Okay, and were there other studies that found similar results?
Oh yeah. Chen and Chow in 1999 looked at a group they called high risk for internet addiction. They found that group was online for about 20 hours a week.
Okay, so still significantly more than the average.
Right. And compared to a non-high-risk group who were online for about 9 hours a week. Plus, they actually found a correlation between their addiction scores and the number of hours they spent online.
Interesting. So the more time spent online, the higher the likelihood of addiction.
It seemed that way,
Mm.
based on their data. And then Chow and Sao in 2000 also found something similar. They classified about 6% of their sample as addicts. And those addicts were spending between 20 and 25 hours online every week.
Almost triple the time of those who weren't classified as addicts.
Exactly. So the amount of time spent online was a pretty consistent indicator. But it wasn't just the quantity, right?
Yeah.
Researchers also looked at what people were actually doing online.
Oh, right. So it wasn't just about being online. It was about what you were doing while you were online.
Exactly. Young, in that 1998 study, she found something really interesting. The internet dependents were more drawn to activities that involved two-way communication, like chat rooms, MUDs.
MUDs. What are
Well,
those?
they're basically early online role-playing games.
Okay.
So chat rooms, MUDs, news groups, email, all about interacting with other people.
Right. And the non-dependents were more likely to use the internet for information gathering, browsing the web.
Exactly. So this led to an early idea that maybe certain applications are more addictive than others.
Like the more social and interactive applications might be the ones to watch out for.
Right. Especially for people who are already prone to excessive internet use. And Kendall also supported this idea. He saw that people who were spending a lot of time in MUDs, IRC, chat rooms, they were the ones who seemed to be having more problems.
IRC?
Yeah, Internet Relay Chat. It was another popular way to chat online back then.
Oh, okay.
He also mentioned that even things like spending hours browsing the web or constantly checking email could become problematic.
So even activities that seem more passive could still be a problem if they were being done excessively.
Exactly. And there's some really interesting research from Asia around this time, too. Chow and his colleagues, in 1999 and 2000, they looked at college students in Taiwan, and they found that the addicts in their sample were mostly using BBSs.
What are BBSs?
They were basically like early online forums or communities. People could connect and discuss different topics.
Okay, like a precursor to Reddit or something?
Yeah, kind of. And the addicted group spent a lot more time on those BBSs and email. And those activities were actually predictors of addiction in their analysis.
Interesting. So the early research seemed to be pointing to the idea that it wasn't just the internet itself, but these specific interactive applications that were more likely to lead to problems.
Absolutely. The more social and interactive, the more potential for trouble.
Okay, so they were starting to figure out what types of activities were most associated with internet addiction. But what about the real world effects? Like what kind of problems were people actually experiencing?
Well, Brenner, in 1997, he found that 80% of his study participants reported at least 5 different problems related to their internet use,
80%. Wow. Like what kind of problems?
like struggling with time management, not getting enough sleep, skipping meals, basic things like that,
Okay, but things that can really impact your health and well-being.
right? And some people also reported problems at work and feelings of social isolation, which, are common with other types of addiction.
Right, so it was starting to look more and more like a real addiction. What about the impact on students specifically, since a lot of the early research was on college campuses?
Yeah, Scherer's 1997 study found that 13% of college students said their internet use was interfering with their schoolwork, their jobs, or their social lives.
Okay, so a sizable chunk of students were experiencing negative consequences.
Right. And a smaller group, about 2%, even felt that their internet use was having an overall negative effect on their lives.
And Young's 1998 study also found similar results, like people reporting problems with their families, their jobs, even their marriages because of their internet use.
Yeah, it was really starting to affect people's lives in significant ways. And a key theme was this idea of time distortion. Like they would lose track of time online.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely experienced that.
Right. And that would lead to things like sleep problems, fatigue, and even academic issues.
Makes sense. If you're staying up all night online, you're not going to do well in your classes.
Exactly. So it was clear that excessive internet use could have some pretty serious real-world consequences. But the impact on social relationships was a bit more complicated.
Okay, how so?
Well, some studies, like Chow and Xiao's study in Taiwan in 2000, they found that while the addicts reported more negative impacts on their studies and routines, they didn't really see their relationships with friends and family as being negatively affected.
Interesting. So even though they were spending a lot of time online, they didn't feel like it was hurting their relationships.
Right. And Lin and Tsai's 1999 study with high school students, they found that internet use actually had a positive influence on peer relationships.
So maybe the internet was actually helping them connect with people.
Possibly. It's definitely more nuanced than just saying internet use equals bad social life.
Right. Okay, let's talk about gender. Did the research show any differences in how men and women were experiencing internet addiction?
Yeah, this was something they looked at. And there was this kind of stereotype back then that the typical internet addict was a young male.
Okay, so like a teenage boy in his basement.
Exactly. And some of the research seemed to support that. Like Xiao and Xiao, in their 2000 study, they found that only 3 out of the 54 people they classified as addicts were female.
Wow, so a very small percentage.
Right. And their analysis suggested that males were more likely to be addicts. And Scherer's 1997 study also found a higher proportion of men among the dependent internet users.
And Moorhen, Martin, and Schumacher in 2000, they also found that males were more likely to be pathological users.
Right. But there were also studies that didn't find a big gender difference. Like Brenner in 1997, he didn't see a difference in the amount of time men and women spent online or the problems they reported.
And Young's 1998 study actually found more females than males in her sample of internet dependence, so it's not totally clear-cut.
No, it's not. And the researchers had some ideas about why the findings were so mixed. One explanation was the different methods used in the studies.
Okay, so like how they collected the data.
Exactly. Studies that found a higher prevalence in males often used surveys done on college campuses.
So maybe a more representative sample.
Right. While the studies that didn't find a difference often used online surveys, where people could self-select to participate.
So maybe there was a bias there, like certain types of people were more likely to take the online surveys.
Exactly. And Griffiths, in 1998, he also suggested that maybe females are just more willing to talk about their problems, so they might be more likely to participate in certain types of research.
Makes sense. And it wasn't just about who was using the internet more, but also how they were using it.
Right. Young, in 1998, observed that men and women seemed to be drawn to different types of online activities.
Yeah.
Like, she said men were more likely to be interested in online content related to power, control, violence.
Okay, so like certain types of games.
Yeah, exactly. And women were more interested in building close friendships, and they preferred to communicate anonymously.
So maybe they felt more comfortable sharing their feelings that way.
Right. And there were also differences in online romantic pursuits. Young observed that men were more likely to be looking for sexual fantasies online, while women were more interested in online romance.
So men and women seem to be using the internet in different ways, even back then.
Definitely. And Chen's 2000 study also found some interesting gender differences. Like, different factors seem to predict how much time men and women spent online each week.
Okay, like what?
For women, shyness and social withdrawal were strong predictors.
So maybe they were using the internet as a way to connect with people without having to face those anxieties.
Exactly. And for men, it was more about their previous experiences with the internet and their overall tolerance for the online environment.
So the more comfortable they were with technology in the online world, the more likely they were to spend a lot of time online.
Right. So the early research was starting to show that gender definitely played a role in how people experienced internet addiction.
Okay, so beyond just gender and the amount of time spent online, researchers also started to look at whether certain personality traits or psychological factors might make someone more prone to internet addiction. What were some of the areas they investigated?
They looked at a lot of different things, like sensation seeking, how much pleasure people got from internet use, feelings of loneliness, symptoms of depression.
Okay, so trying to understand the underlying psychological factors. What about sensation seeking? I remember seeing some mixed results in the article.
Yeah, sensation seeking was interesting. Lavin and colleagues in 1999, they actually found that dependent internet users scored lower on measures of sensation seeking.
Lower. That's kind of surprising. You'd think people who are drawn to excessive internet use would be the ones who are seeking out new and intense experiences.
Right. And the researchers thought maybe it was because the kind of social interaction that was happening online back then didn't really fit the traditional definition of sensation seeking. Or maybe the existing scales weren't really designed to measure that kind of thing in a digital environment.
Okay, so maybe the way they were measuring sensation seeking wasn't quite capturing what was going on with internet use.
Exactly. But then Lin and Tsai in 2002, they did a study with high school students, and they found the opposite. The dependent internet users in their study actually scored higher on sensation seeking, especially on a measure of disinhibition.
Disinhibition, what's that?
It's basically a willingness to ignore social norms and take risks.
Okay, so maybe they were more likely to engage in risky behavior online.
Possibly. And the researchers thought that this might have something to do with the developmental stage of adolescence. Teenagers are exploring their identities, pushing boundaries.
Right, so maybe that's why they were seeing higher sensation seeking in the high school students.
Could be. And the review article pointed out that those differences in findings could also be because of cultural factors. They even suggested that maybe we need a new sensation-seeking scale that's specifically designed for online activities.
That makes sense. What about the idea of pleasure and gratification? Did people who use the internet a lot do so because they found it enjoyable?
Oh yeah, that was a much more consistent finding. Chow and colleagues in 1999, they found a direct correlation between addiction scores and how much pleasure people got from using the internet.
Okay, so the more addicted they were, the more they enjoyed being online.
Exactly. And Chow and Xiao, in their 2000 study, they found that the addicts in their sample reported higher levels of enjoyment from using the internet. Specifically, they found that communication pleasure was the strongest predictor of addiction.
Communication pleasure.
Yeah, so the enjoyment they got from communicating with other people online.
That makes sense. Social interaction can be very rewarding.
Right. And they also found that using BBSs, gender, overall satisfaction with internet use, and email use were also significant predictors. But communication pleasure was number one.
Interesting. So it seems like the social aspect of the internet was really driving the addictive behavior for a lot of people. What about the link between internet addiction and mental health issues like depression and loneliness?
Yeah, that was something they looked at too. Young and Rogers in 1998, they found a connection between higher levels of depression and internet addiction. They suggested that people who already have low self-esteem, poor motivation, fear of rejection, might turn to the internet to cope.
Okay, so they're using the internet as a way to escape those negative feelings.
Exactly. But they also suggested that spending too much time online could actually make depression worse by increasing social isolation.
So it could be a vicious cycle. You're depressed, so you go online to escape, but then being online makes you more isolated and depressed.
Right. And Moorhen Martin and Schumacher in 2000, they found that pathological internet users reported feeling lonelier. But again, they couldn't say for sure which came first. Did the loneliness lead to the internet addiction? Or was it the other way around?
Right, that chicken and egg problem.
Exactly. And Morahan Martin, in 1999, she actually argued that loneliness might be a consequence of excessive internet use. Like you're spending all your time online, so you're not developing real-life relationships.
So even though you're interacting with people online, it's not the same as face-to-face interaction.
Right, it's not fulfilling those same social needs.
So a lot of complex factors at play. The early research seemed to point to a link between internet addiction and depression and loneliness, but more research was needed to understand the exact nature of that relationship.
Absolutely. It's a really complicated issue.
Now, I remember the article also touched on people's attitudes towards computers and online communication. Did that seem to play a role in internet addiction?
Yeah, they looked into that a little bit. Morahan Martin and Schumacher, in their 2000 study, they found that pathological internet users tended to score higher on things like social confidence and social liberation in online settings.
Social confidence and social liberation, what do those mean?
Social confidence basically meant they felt more comfortable interacting with people online. Like they felt like they could escape social pressures and make friends more easily.
Okay, so they felt more confident online than they did in person.
Right. And social liberation referred to feeling more comfortable sharing personal things online, even pretending to be someone else.
Interesting. So they felt freer to express themselves online.
Exactly. And they also tended to agree with statements that said online communication was easier and more comfortable than face-to-face interaction, and that it gave them more control over their interactions.
So maybe for some people, the online world just felt safer and more manageable.
Possibly. And Tsai and Lin's 2001 study with high school students in Taiwan, they found that students who felt more in control of their online interactions and who valued the internet's usefulness were more likely to feel like they needed more time online to be satisfied.
So if they saw the internet as a valuable tool and felt like they could use it effectively, they were more likely to want to spend more time online.
Right. But the article did say that it was hard to draw any firm conclusions about the link between internet addiction and computer attitudes based on the research that was available at that time.
Okay, so more research was needed in that area.
Definitely. But it was clear that the internet was becoming increasingly important in people's lives, and their attitudes towards it were likely playing a role in their online behavior.
Okay, so after looking at all these early findings, the researchers then tried to tackle the big question. What is it about the internet that makes it so addictive for some people?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, and they approached it from a few different angles.
Okay, like what?
They considered the nature of the internet itself, the
Yeah.
characteristics of the people use it, and the types of interactions that happen online.
So, like, is it the technology itself? Is it something about the users? Or is it the way people interact with each other online?
Exactly. And of course, all those things are connected.
Right, they influence each other. So let's start with the internet itself. What were some of the characteristics that they thought might contribute to its addictive potential?
Well, Greenfield, in 1999, he talked about the speed, the accessibility, the intensity of information, the overall stimulating nature of the internet.
Okay, so the internet's fast, it's always available, there's a ton of information, and it's constantly engaging your attention.
Right. And Chow, in 2001, he found that heavy internet users really liked the interactivity, the ease of use, the constant availability, the vast amount of information, and the constantly changing perspectives you could find online.
So it was like this endless world of possibilities.
Exactly. And of course, during this time, the internet was becoming more and more accessible to people, like faster connections, cheaper computers, easier to use interfaces.
Right, it was really becoming mainstream.
In Grohl, in 1999, he pointed out that society was really pushing internet use. Like it was seen as this positive thing. And as more and more everyday tasks moved online, it just made sense that people would spend more time on the internet.
Right, it was becoming more integrated into our lives. But I remember the article also emphasized that the internet itself isn't necessarily addictive.
Yeah, that was a key point.
Yeah.
Young, she keeps saying that it's not the internet as a whole, but the specific interactive features and applications that are more likely to lead to problems.
Okay, so it's not just about being online, it's about what you're doing online.
Exactly. And Griffiths, he went a step further and said that the structural characteristics of online activities are what make them so addictive.
Structural characteristics, what does that mean?
It's basically the way online activities are designed, like the features that keep people engaged,
Oh, okay. So give me some examples.
like the high level of interactivity in chat rooms and online games. That can create this immersive experience where you feel like you're in another world.
Right, you lose track of time.
Exactly. And then there's anonymity, like on those old BBSs. That can make people feel less inhibited. They might say and do things they wouldn't do in person.
Right, because they feel like they're not really themselves.
And even simple things like the redo button in online gambling can be reinforcing. It gives you this sense that you can always try again and win.
So it's not just the content itself, but the way the online environment is designed to keep you engaged.
Exactly. And these design features are even more sophisticated today. Like, think about the like button on social media, or the way your news feed is constantly refreshing with new content.
Right, they're designed to keep you scrolling and scrolling.
And that's exactly the kind of thing Griffiths was talking about. Understanding these design features is crucial for understanding why people get addicted to certain online activities.
Okay, so it's not just what you're doing online, but how the online environment is designed to keep you hooked. What about the users themselves? What were some of the needs that researchers thought the internet might be fulfilling in potentially unhealthy ways?
Suler, in 1999, he came up with this framework of 6 basic human needs that the internet could potentially satisfy. And he said that when people rely too heavily on the internet to meet those needs, that's when you start to see problems.
Okay, so what were those 6 needs?
Sex, altered consciousness, achievement and mastery, belonging, relationships, and self-actualization.
So pretty broad range of needs.
Right. And the article specifically talks about sex, achievement and mastery, altered consciousness, and pleasure.
Let's start with sex. I mean, that one seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, with the easy access to online pornography and cybersex, it's not surprising that this would be one of the needs the internet could fulfill.
Right, and the anonymity of the internet probably makes it even more appealing for some people.
Exactly. And Suler, he argued that the reasons people get preoccupied with online sex are basically the same reasons they get preoccupied with offline sex. Like, it's about fulfilling those basic biological and psychological
Okay,
needs.
so it's not just about the technology, it's about human nature.
Right. And Moorhan Martin and Schumacher, in 2000, they found that pathological internet users were more likely to use adult websites.
So there's definitely a connection there.
And Young, in 1997, she suggested that the potential for sexual fulfillment could be a big factor in internet addiction. But Delmonico and Carnes, in 1999, they cautioned that we shouldn't jump to conclusions about a direct causal link between internet use and sexual addiction.
Right, it's a complex issue. What about the need for achievement and mastery? How did the internet play into that?
Suler said that some people get a lot of satisfaction from mastering the technical aspects of the internet, like learning how to use new software, navigating different websites.
Okay, so it's like a challenge that they enjoy overcoming.
Exactly. And for others, it's about exploring online communities, participating in discussions, creating content. It gives them a sense of accomplishment.
And Candell talked about the need for control, like people wanting to feel like they're in control of their online experience. Okay, so they like being able to choose what they do, when they do it, how they interact with others.
Right. And the problem comes when that need for achievement and mastery becomes obsessive. Like, they're spending all their time online trying to achieve something, but it's not really fulfilling them in a meaningful way.
Right. It's not translating to real-world accomplishments or recognition.
Exactly. And then there's the need for altered consciousness. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, what did they mean by that?
Suler said that people have this innate need to experience altered states of consciousness,
Right.
and the internet provides a new way to do that.
Okay, so how does the internet alter your consciousness?
Well, think about how time seems to fly by when you're online, or how you can feel like you're in a different place when you're immersed in a virtual world.
Right, you kind of lose yourself in the online experience.
Exactly. And Young, in 1997, she talked about unlocked personalities and online personas. Like, the internet allows you to experiment with different aspects of your personality and express yourself in ways you might not in real life.
So you can be whoever you want to be online.
Right. And Moorhan Martin, in 1999, she said that this kind of online self-change can be really liberating for some people. But the problem comes when you get too attached to your online persona and you can't disconnect from it.
So it's like you're living more in the online world than in the real world.
Exactly. And finally, there's the need for pleasure. We already talked about how the enjoyment of online activities can be a big driver of addiction.
Right, especially the social interaction.
But Scherer, in 1997, he also found that dependent internet users were spending a lot more of their leisure time online.
So they were basically choosing the internet over other forms of entertainment and relaxation.
Right. And Chow and colleagues, in their 1999 study, they found a correlation between internet addiction and how much pleasure people got from escaping their worries and interacting with others online.
Okay, so again, it's that social aspect.
And Morahan, Martin, and Schumacher, in 2000, they found that people who were having problems with internet use were more likely to use it for recreation, wasting time, and gambling.
So they were using the internet to avoid dealing with real life.
In a way, yes. And this actually goes back to some of Griffith's earlier observations about people using computer games for arousal or escape.
So even before the internet was as widespread as it is today, people were using technology as a way to escape reality.
Exactly. And the internet just made that escape even easier and more accessible.
Right. It's always there, waiting for you. So we've talked about the nature of the internet and the needs of the users. What about the third perspective, the nature of online interactions?